Welcome to Screen Chat. I'm Neil Bastions, and this is the show where I sit around with friends and talk about film and television and pop culture. With me today, Ben Vickery. Ben, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. Glad you are here. It's a frigid night outside here in Winnipeg. It's minus 30, something like that.
It's like minus 21, and then the wind chill's what kills it. It's like minus 30-something.
It's nasty, but it's not too bad in here. It's toasty in the studio as it is, because I don't have individual controlled unit heat in here, so the whole building's generally too hot.
Really?
Yeah, but
oh, man.
I deal with it.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, geez, it's about time we had this cold snap. We've been overdue.
Yeah. Anyways, this week we're trying something a little bit different. Something I've sort of wanted to do since the beginning is sort of a have two people that have opposite opinions of a movie. And last time we did an episode together, we accidentally stumbled over the fact that we have polar opposite opinions of the, I believe it was 2016 film Passengers. Was it 2016 it came
2016,
out? Okay, yeah, with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. Yeah. So, all right. So, anyways, this is, I'm just going to preface this for anybody listening. Okay, for one, major spoiler alert. If you haven't seen this film, normally I say to people, hey, if you haven't seen these things, you could still maybe listen, but this would be really pointless to listen to if you haven't seen Passengers. So if you haven't, maybe go give it a watch and then come back to this. There's no wrong answer with art, so even though I emphatically don't like this film, it doesn't mean, I'm not the overlord here that I have the final say on this. So, hey, maybe you will like it to people listening out there. So, because Ben definitely does. So, I think what we'll do here, Ben, is why don't you go ahead and just run through the film, recap it, give us a synopsis, and tell me what do you like about Passengers?
All right. Well, quick breakdown of the film. It's set in the unsaid future, unstated future, and basically what's going on is these people have paid a lot of money to be on this, let's call it an ark. There's a company that has decided that it's time to populate other worlds, and they put you in hibernation, and you go on this ship, and it's a 120-year voyage to get to this new planet. And what happens is there's an unknown or an unforeseen event happens. The ship takes some damage, and one of the passengers wakes up. And it's never happened before. It's never supposed to happen. They've done dozens of these voyages with these ships and never had a problem. But this guy wakes up, and you cannot put yourself back in. So he goes on and basically spends the next year alone on the ship, gets real down, almost kills himself, and then he stumbles upon this woman who he falls in love with. He's
still frozen. She's
still asleep, and he starts reading her bio and starts learning everything about her and listens to her recordings, because there's all these recordings on the ship of anybody who's been part of this. And he decides to wake her up, which is, obviously a very hard decision and a crazy decision, because, they're 30 years, I guess I probably didn't say this, they're 30 years into this 120-year voyage, so they've got 90 years left to go. By the time he wakes him up, there's 89 years left to go. And so, yeah, he wakes her up, and then he doesn't tell her that he woke her up, and they hang out together. They try to fix it all. Eventually, they have some issues. Another a member of the crew gets woken up because of these issues, but he was woken up poorly, so he winds up dying, and they've discovered the ship's going to crash, and they work together. She hates him because she now realizes that he woke her up, and
she accidentally finds out.
Yeah, she accidentally finds out because the robot bartender lets something slip, and she hates him, and then all this, so they spend weeks apart, not even talking to each other, and then this crewman wakes up, and they realize that it's there's major issues with the ship, and it's up to them to save it. The crewman dies, but he gives them their ID. Then they figure out what the problem is. They work together to do it. He goes to, there's the pretty typical issue where it's, this can only be done if I potentially sacrifice myself, but I'm going to do it. And she doesn't want him to, because now she realizes that she is in love with him. And so there is that kind of tropey thing. But anyways, they fix the problems. They fix the ship. They fall in love. They live and die together on the ship. And the crew wakes up and finds this ship completely changed in its interior and everything, and she's written a book about their time together and the story of them. So, what I liked about it, I thought the writing was really good. I thought it was a great kind of twist on the classic kind of Castaway story. Now, kind of a Castaway, like the Castaway movie, but in space. You've got Jennifer Lawrence, who put in, I thought, a really great performance in it. You've got Chris Pratt, who was, I think that's the closest to acting I've seen Chris Pratt do. He wasn't, he was still quite a bit of himself.
He's Chris
Pratt, but he was a very toned down.
I think it's come up before on the podcast that there's,
you and I have discussed this.
Yeah, I think that there's actors and there's movie stars. Actors disappear into roles.
Yeah.
Movie stars just seem to be, because of their charisma or their presence or whatever, certain actors are movie stars that feel like they are bigger than the role. And I think that's Chris Pratt. Everything he's in, he's some shade of Chris Pratt. His charm comes through, his whatever it is, and that's just the way he is. And when he's in a movie, that's what you're going to get going in.
And with this role, I felt that this was if you want to go, the scale of left to right, left being actor, right being movie star, this was the furthest left that I've seen Chris Pratt. I'm not saying that he was in actor mode, but he toned himself down for this role, and I appreciate it.
And I really don't think anybody right now hires him to be anything but that. I think they go, this is what we want. He's charming as hell, and I think that's when he's getting cast right now in films, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, he's got that great blend of cocky, arrogant, and
likability,
awkward nerdiness, but still buff and whatever. He's got that kind of appeals to everybody. He's 60%.
Hollywood likes to look at him as, I like to say about him that they like to present him as the everyman. But it's like, no dude looks like him.
No.
He's not quite Bradley Cooper, but he ain't every man. But that's how they sort of present him, as like his personality seems to be more down to earth and more like, hey, could be your neighbor.
Yeah. I really liked the little touches in the movie were I think for me a big part of it. Like, they always talk about these Castaway movies about missing people and all that, but I mean, the one scene where he's kind of exploring and it's really far in, and he gets to the spacesuits and the airlock and that, and he goes to go outside and he just stops for a second and he kind of bends over and just like holds the hand of the spacesuit and hugs the spacesuit. I mean, like, when I was watching that and I saw him do that, I'm like, holy cow, that's right. Like, he has not seen or like had contact with another person. So yeah, he's going to do that just to be like, like to do it that way though. Like, not the conversation that he missed, but just
even just human contact.
Just to pretend like he was hugging somebody. That really got to me and it really kind of affected me on that one. So I really appreciated that scene. And then his the bartender, was that?
Oh God, yeah, his name
is Michael Sheen.
Sheen, yeah.
He was so charming, for being an android. For being his part, he just had this perfect charm and kind of cluelessness on the important parts, but still managed to dispense some kind of advice and be like, that. He was a great little touch. And yeah, just the things, once she woke up and they started talking about his year alone, and he's like, I didn't wear pants for a month. And then the bartender's like, 7 weeks. Like, just the little kind of humor. I thought it was really charming. And then, yes, she probably would hate him for, the discovery. And of course it's going to come from the android. I mean, the slip of how she woke up, and of course she's going to hate him, and they kind of stayed apart. And his apology was, you could see it was heartfelt, but it wasn't you could still see where he's like, yeah, I get it, and she just lost it on him, like, I don't care what you think, or you basically murdered me, and but yeah, and then just the fact that they still managed to figure it out, and yes, as the android said, time heals all things, right? So corny maybe at the end, but I still that's those are the things
nothing wrong with corniness in the right place. Yeah,
and that's the things that I just thought it was a really interesting take. The visuals in the movie were fantastic. The sets were incredible. I thought they did a great job on the ship design. The little touches of the like infinity pool. I just used air quotes on a podcast, an audio podcast.
The visual medium of podcast.
So, I'm an idiot.
And it's so you fessed up to it though that you are being an asshole by using air quotes.
Like, for all you people who can see me at home, stop taking so much LSD. No, so like the infinity pool that they had that went right up to the glass at the outside of the ship. I felt that was just a really nice touch, and how beautiful it would be. Like they definitely put some effort into this ship, and I mean, I really liked that they really thought about a lot of it, and to do a movie like this is you have no cast. I mean, you had 4 people and then a bunch of little fill-in extras at the end and even the fill-ins, I think, was
one of them was Andy Garcia.
Which
was so bizarre that I don't know, because I don't really see as how there would have been a cut scene at the end, and he's unrecognizable in that beard.
Oh no, I knew it right away. Like I saw him and I'm like, what? Like, Andy Garcia, you showed up for 30 seconds work?
And
like,
no lines.
No.
Yeah, so that was really bizarre.
Yeah,
must have been a friend of somebody, or he must have done as a gag or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's just like, well, I got nothing to do for a couple of weeks. I'll show up for a day and shoot my scene of me with a
walk out all agog. Yeah.
So, but you have no cast. I mean, Lawrence Fishburne as the
crew member that wakes up the deck chief.
The deck chief that tries to help out, and I just felt it was the chemistry was really good between everybody, and the performances were good. I really liked the writing, so it was a fun but with a little dark side, and then a nice light ending. So I mean, would I call it art? No.
Yeah, hey, why not? It's art. Dogs playing poker is still art.
Well,
and I'm not disparaging that, because someday I would love to have a copy of Dogs Playing Poker on my walls.
It is kind of iconic.
Not everything. Yeah, hey, everything is at the buffet table here. Sometimes you want to eat, prime rib. Sometimes you want to eat a cheeseburger. Yeah, it's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call it, a classic or a cultural phenomenon or anything like that. But it's thoroughly enjoyable. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
That is why you like it.
That's why I like it.
Awesome. Now, it's going to take me a few seconds to really explain this. Now, the story, if you strip away all the stuff, the basic story, I think is good. But I think I think at the time I reviewed it by saying, I was pretty harsh, saying that the filmmakers either didn't understand the movie they should be making, or didn't have the courage to tell the story properly, because they didn't think people would make it. This movie, to me, is, as it exists, is a very polished, packaged Hollywood movie, with the 2 leads are like Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt are on their own. They are each individually full-on charm factories. So you put the 2 of them together, and this thing is almost like, it's almost hard. It's too much charm at times almost, but it's ridiculous. But that is not the tone that I feel the movie should have had. And I think it was made totally wrong, and I think they probably spent 4 to 5 times too much money on it. How I think this movie should have been.
I'm going to ask.
Okay.
1 hour photo?
Not exactly, but sort of.
Okay.
The movie should have initially been told from Jennifer Lawrence's character, from Aurora's perspective, that the movie should start with Aurora waking up. That's the beginning of your film. Aurora wakes up, wanders around, bumps into Chris Pratt, bumps into the other character, Jim. I'm going to take this opportunity right here to also say that Jim should not have been played by Chris Pratt. that they should have got a much more, I'm going to say average, or, you know, to be shallow, a less good looking dude. Somebody, they should have had, like, say, and maybe somebody not exactly, like, not right lined up for her age. Maybe, like, say, like a Sam Rockwell, who's not traditionally as handsome as a Chris Pratt, doesn't have those Hollywood leading man looks, okay? And let him be a little bit weird. So Aurora should wake up, wander around, find Jim, okay? He introduces himself. Yeah, I've been alone here for a year on the ship. They slowly acclimate. They start being friends. You see a relationship forming, and let it time progress at points, not with musical interludes and stuff, okay? And leading up to the reveal. Now, I would also strip a lot of this out here. Like I said, budgetary-wise, I would strip it down, and I'll get more into that. I'll circle back to the way I think the production design should have been different. But for now, I'm saying there should not have been the bartender character, and Jim should have stumbled and accidentally slipped to her that he woke her up. And she should have, like, that freak out moment of, like, you did what? And then you flash back to Jim waking up a year earlier. And I think you could play that out for, like, say 25 minutes with no talking. Just Jim calling around the ship and maybe talking to himself, but there's not a robot for him to talk to. There's nothing else. And you play it out in silence and just show him progressing over time, becoming more and more lonely and desperate for human contact, to where he talks himself into waking her up. This movie should have been a psychological horror, because then it's super creepy, and you change it because by showing the first 25 minutes or 30 minutes of her meeting Jim and them becoming whatever, and him, her, feeling bad for his loneliness, and two people connecting, you now have completely turned it around and lean into the creepiness. Because I'm sorry, if you're going to make it a more honest, less Hollywood movie, that is creepy as hell that he watched her sleeping and then chose to wake her up. And basically by reading her crew record and watching videos, I would have also leaned into more that he tailors himself, that he knows the right things to say to her when she wakes up to connect with her. Almost like he has, like, an intelligence report on him. Imagine going on a date with someone and they don't know that you have, like, an intel report written by their family and friends on the ways that they like, things they like, and how to connect with them and whatever.
Second half of Groundhog Day.
Exactly. So, and lean into the harshness. And I think that should have been the move. So then she pushes him away. When you catch back up to the main timeline, she's like, get away from me. Don't ever talk to me. And he's trying to explain to her. And maybe he writes her a letter to try to leave someplace explaining, saying, like, I can never, you can never understand. I can never make you understand. I know you don't think what I did was right. What I did wasn't right, but you just don't understand. Like, you don't understand the desperation of being the only person in the world, the only person in the universe, and how lonely I was. And I would have her wandering around, and then eventually she's, debating in her mind, but she just won't forgive him. And then she comes around the corner or something and finds that he's hung himself and killed himself. None of this other ship damage. None of this, they have to save the day and they fall back in love. And in that moment when he is dead, all that time, she always would have had that option to break the stalemate and say, I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to give you another chance. And I don't know if I love you, but we're going to at least talk so we have companionship. But now that he's gone, in that moment, for the first time, Aurora realizes what it's like to be the only person in the world. And all of a sudden, in that moment, that when Jim's gone now, she now understands how lonely it is. And you could have just pushed in. And I think you still could have cast Jennifer Lawrence, because she's a fantastic actor. And you could have pushed in on her eyes, and I think she could have played it great. Or, even if you cast somebody else to keep the budget down, because she got like $20 million for this. And you could have left the audience with the question in their mind of now, and maybe even show her, like, in that moment, you could maybe even play out just her wandering around the ship, and maybe the last shot is her wandering into the bay with more people sleeping in the pods and her staring at the pods, and then just go out like that with the audience asking themselves, is she now going to wake somebody
I was
up?
going to say, do you do like a mid-credit scene where it's her with like a file and like sitting in a pod trying to wake someone up?
Not even a mid-credit scene. Like lean into something like a movie like a Gone Baby Gone, where at the end you leave the audience with that question and you don't answer the question if he was right or wrong. Is she going to make that, or almost like the end of like an Inception, where you don't know what's going on, so you don't know what's going to happen next. And I don't think we need to know what happens next, and you leave it like that. I think this movie would have been for me, more entertaining and engaging as a lower budget, more like a psychological, almost horror film.
Okay, well, I'm not going to disagree that movie sounds like it would be so much better. But
I'm not going to say better. I'm going to say, to me, more entertaining to me personally, with my personal artistic taste.
I think if you do it that way, I think you've taken this from a really entertaining movie to a like modern classic. Like that. I want to see this movie now.
Is that
like,
not like
I still really
and
like Passengers,
and I did not intend this podcast to try to talk you into this. But
no. I mean,
you're
not going to talk me out of liking it, but is that version way better? Well, yeah.
And like I'm saying, and so now you can now dig into like more like what I would say, like you'd be like, these are sort of like, this will eventually slide more as I'm going to go down the scale into nitpicks, but I would also have made the ship, like, to me watching it, like you said, there was really awesome production design. They made this whole ship, and I hated it because I thought, this is ridiculous. This is like you called it an ark. This is a colonist ship. They're going off to colonize a far off planet that takes them 120 years to get there. Okay, and as they say in the movie, it's designed that the people will wake up with 4 months to go, under the idea that they're supposed to learn or train then. And so, but whatever, but that the ship is designed to be like a luxury liner. It's like Titanic in space, so that for the last 4 months before they get there, but it's even got class systems built in, that there's a first class passengers that have all this luxury shit. Yep. And then there's fourth class passengers. Okay, sorry.
No. I think that one of the things you're reading into here, and I didn't read this myself, was that this is the only ship going to this planet. No. Or that this is the only time this ship has gone. One of the things they said was
it's made multiple journeys.
Yeah. And that this is what was the name of the planet? Something 2, right? So they've done this before.
Yeah, there's other ones.
And one of the things, Homestead Colony. Homestead 2, I think is what it was. Yeah, Homestead 2. But there's more than just these 5,000 people
there. There are, but it's not like a built-up planet.
But they also said that ship was going back.
Yeah, and Jennifer Lawrence would be one of the only passengers. Yes. It's not like it was a regular thing. It's not like these people traveled and lost 100, or if the round trip, they'd lose 240 years for a 4-month vacation.
Yeah, she was going to be on there for like a year.
Most of them, and go back. But most of them were going to be staying there. And as I got it, it not sound like it was a developed up planet. Like they aren't going there to move into condos. Like Chris Pratt talks about how, you're gonna be building stuff, and I'm gonna build a home and whatever. So it's still gonna be very rustic. Yeah. So I couldn't buy into that. Just on that thing, that to me it was like, okay, first class people that would pay high end for luxury first class, not too many of them are gonna be farmers and gonna go there and go, all right, now we'll go get our hands dirty. But even at that, say maybe they save a whole bunch of money to say, hey, for 4 months we're gonna live the high life and then we're gonna go be colonists. But it just and it is science fiction, but like from a logical standpoint of design, for just 4 months worth of time, you build this ship 4 times bigger than it has to be and spend 4 times as much fuel to have all these things like the bar and this and the other thing. I thought the ship should have been a lot more utilitarian.
See,
and almost like they should come into, or if you were doing this, and like, I hate to say in real life, but if this was a real thing and you had these passengers, you would get there and you would go into an orbit, into like a stationary orbit, and then wake all the passengers up. There's not really a reason for them waking up 4 months earlier other than to establish it's a plot contrivance to have all these luxury things in the ship. So I thought that was a little goofy.
I will say yes, but at the same time, I mean, with something like this, if you're waking people up, they want to wake people up 4 months early to put them through some other little classes, like a lot of these guys, like Chris Pratt he was a desirable skill trade.
Yep,
right?
He was a mechanic.
So that's what he got a discounted price. Now, these things have to be driven by people with money, right? Like, this is a business. And I mean, part of what they said was, you have to pay a ridiculous amount of money, and then you have to pay the company
your wage,
20% of
your wage,
everything you make for the rest of your life, right? So, yeah,
which didn't really make sense either, because if you're going to a colonist planet like this type of thing, you wouldn't be making tons of money there. You wouldn't be working for big companies. And it kind of like you're almost like you're like pioneers. You're working to survive.
And that's where I inferred the fact that, okay, if I'm paying 20% of my money, this company's obviously doing some infrastructure, blah, 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 because they're probably pre-setting up a lot of things. Like, there's probably going to be an area cleared for you. They obviously brought plants, so they've probably raised some stuff. Maybe they sent robots ahead. I inferred...
That thought, that did not occur to me before, and I always just took it as it seemed to me to be inconsistent.
Yeah. I felt like, no, we've picked this planet because we've already been here. We've sent machines ahead.
I even thought with the name Homestead, to me, it seemed to be sort of like almost a little bit on the nose of being, you're going to be like pioneers.
Yeah,
but that was also just my read on it.
Yeah, and I took it as yes, pioneers, but you're not going to the Stone Age or even pre-industrial America. You're going in as you're going to set up homes and whatever, but it's going to be a fresh start, but you're still going to have a lot of the modern technologies from Earth. Because, I mean, even the bins that they showed where they had spare parts for everything and they had all this extra equipment and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I kind of get. And, I mean, one of the things that I think is nice that they did was all of this entertainment stuff and all of this, luxury stuff. Because you got 4 months. And you're going to go work your ass off for probably quite a while. So get your enjoyment in while you can and make those bonds, right? Like, I mean, a lot of people are going in as singles. You need to start developing, maybe not the right word, cliques, but you need to start developing these societies.
Social groups.
Yeah, social groups. And people need to start building a community more so than just here's 5,000 individuals or couples or whatever.
I agree, and I will counter back that therefore, under that idea, it's counterintuitive then to have a class structure built right into the ship, where you're having first class passengers and third and fourth class passengers.
But you need that opportunity to get the trades in for cheap, but you also want the people with money to fund this expedition, right?
I would think that, but I think intuitively, if people are going, the kind of people that would want to undertake this sort of an adventure, I'm leaving everything behind. I'm going to give up. I'm going to be asleep for 120 years, and I'm going to a brand new planet. These would be more adventurous people, and I think those people would tend to be less inclined to class. So you're not going to have so-called first-class people that are separate from the other one. They're going to be more like, let's all be equal, and let's start a new...
I don't know. Imagine head of a mining company. Imagine having a brand new world to go and start a mining company and make yourself uber rich just doing that. I mean, for a lot of these guys, it's probably, these rich people, it's the challenge of success in a whole new world and not having, some of the restrictions maybe that you have on yourself at this back at home or I can see a bunch of people or, like writers. You charge the writer. She had the gold ticket, right?
Ticket, yeah.
So she paid through the nose because she knew that this is my opportunity to get an experience and then come back and write, the new Earthling novel or whatever. So I
took it like when I was watching it. I read it or saw, like I said, again, like with them calling the planet Homestead, and I kind of envisioned it to be a little more pioneerish. And then, so I felt that the ship being set up like a luxury liner like that, and with the class system included, I thought that for one, being set up with all the luxury stuff was like to me, it read like a plot contrivance of they want them to be able to go on all kinds of cute dates. And then with the class structure, it was set up, because I don't know if we mentioned this in the in your synopsis of it either, but that when Chris Pratt, and this turns into a nit in a few minutes here, he could only get, when he went to the mess hall, he could only get like a fourth class breakfast, which was a very basic, it looked like some kind of protein.
Cornflakes or oatmeal.
Or some kind of a loaf of some sort.
He could only get
plain coffee. So, and then when Aurora woke up, she was first class or gold class, so she could get this elite breakfast, and it was just done so that she could then share with him and see that difference. And I thought that was simply put in there to sort of create a trope of he's from the wrong side of the tracks and she's good. But now deep down, they're both just people.
One of the things that I kind of noticed though to counter that is, yes, he could only get black coffee and whatever, but he could drink all the whiskey he wanted
and go to the fancy restaurants. That was going to turn into the nit.
He went to the fancy restaurants, so that didn't seem to be a problem.
It absolutely made zero sense that in the mess hall, he could only get the basic breakfast and a black coffee, but he could go to the French restaurant and order anything he wanted, or the sushi joint, or like you said, the bar. Yeah.
I was kind of wondering if it was like anything that he did outside of the basic breakfast, any of those restaurants just added to his debt. You know?
Well, okay, but even if it did, then why wouldn't it just do it for him in the mess hall?
And that's
all he wanted. He wanted the mocha blast coffee or whatever it was, right? And it's so ridiculous.
Mocha extreme caffeine latte.
And it's so ridiculous. And that got like, even taking their thing of going, he can only get basic things. The idea of being that he could only get a black coffee versus getting a mocha was like, okay, that's pushing it into the ridiculousness. It would give him the damn coffee.
I know. It's like come at that point. Yeah. That was. I'll admit that one was kind of. Yeah, a little. Yeah, I felt it was a little weird because, like, I understand that he had this basic cabin and he wound up breaking into a different cabin. I don't know how he kept doing that.
No, because that was another nit that they went to great lengths that they all wore these wristbands that had them identified, so the ship knew where they could go and where they couldn't go. So even if you kick the door down into this luxury cabin, why does it keep responding to your commands in there? It's like, well, you went to the trouble of kicking the door down. We'll let you in.
No, and when he dies for that little bit and. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We can only resuscitate with a crew member's access.
And it was,
really? Like, we don't think saving a life is important? I agree. Like, there were there's always some things, but that was.
Yeah, and you can pick nits out of any movie. Sometimes I'm kind of like, if you can pick too many, then the thing that you really, when you pull it enough threads and the whole tapestry comes apart.
Yeah. Can I just say that?
Go, yeah.
It wasn't until I think we were just started this podcast that I got the Sleeping Beauty reference.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized it half an hour ago that it's Aurora Sleeping Beauty. I'm like, oh my god, okay,
it's a little on the nose.
All of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm just a little slow.
They could have been worse. A little on the nose. They could have called him Charlie and been Charming or something like that, or he could have been
Jim Charming,
or he could have been Jim or Jim Prince or something like that. But another one I had there was and this builds into the idea that the ship had been damaged in because they went through an asteroid field and got hit, so that it's starting to have more and more failures and the reactor is going to blow up and whatever is the thing. So it wakes up another crew member, and it's the only reason it wakes Lawrence Fishburne up is so that he can give them the wristband so that she can save Jim's life later. He wakes up for that. That's the only reason that character wakes up, is to be able to pass on the thing so that they can create this moment of Jim dying and then Aurora saving him in the autodock.
And so they have access to the place where the problem was.
Exactly. So he is just like an ex machina character that he's simply woken up to turn the plot, and then he dies again.
He's a red shirt.
Yeah, exactly. And so I hated that he woke up. And also, if he woke up, and especially even before he starts not feeling good, but especially initially when he does, thing one he would do is go wake everybody else up, wake the rest of the crew. He's just going to wander around, and there's problems on the ship, obviously, and he doesn't wake the captain and some of the engineering crew. We'll just try to figure it out. I was like, but then if all those people are awake, Jim doesn't have to save the ship.
Well, and if those people are awake, what happens later when they all die because they can't go back into hibernation? I thought, to me, the biggest overall issue was the fact that, okay, we're going to bring in this machine that hooks up to your pod that was going to put you to sleep into the hibernation. Then we're going to take this machine away, and we're not going to have one on the ship. Because these pods never fail.
And that becomes another ridiculous thing. That you would never send a ship on a 120-year journey, and I would think you'd almost you'd have crew that are going to be asleep, but you probably almost have people that are going to be on rotational wake-ups.
And that's one of the things.
The idea that you should have someone that can then put them back to sleep, and you'd almost have the crew rotating on, you'll be awake for 5 years, and I'll be awake for 5 years, and you'll have shifts or something. And when you get there, some of them are going to be 25, 30 years older because they're going to have taken their shifts. But it's
what does it matter? Everybody back home.
That's
is
your
dead
job.
anyways,
Yeah, that's your
right?
job.
Like,
That's what you do. And
you do one trip there and one trip back, and then you're retired.
Yeah.
That's it. That's your life. Right?
Yeah, and you've worked your career. But
And that's one of the things, that kind of bothered me. It's like
there's a lot of plot contrivances in it.
Especially since later on in the movie, they're like, oh, what do we do? How do we fix this? And when the core is damaged, it's like, they got spare parts for everything here. It's like, except for the machine that puts you to sleep?
Yeah, the movie lives and dies on so many plot contrivances.
There's a strong suspension of disbelief in this movie. But like I said, I enjoyed it. I'm not... I can suspend a lot of things watching a movie and not until
I
the
can
end
too. I love superhero movies and all this kind of ridiculousness. I think probably what happened for me here is just because my brain was instantly, like when I watched it and instantaneously I rewrote it the other way, the way I described it. Yeah. And I'm like, to me, that's such a better movie that then the rest of it just becomes now I'm just like, oh, now I'm just,
I won't deny it.
Now I'm going after everything. I'm like, this is bad. That's bad.
Hearing your description of the way it could have been, it's like, yeah, I can see how that would be an amazing movie.
And made for a lot less money.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Like the budget on this thing was like 110. I think 35 of that or something was the cast. Like Jennifer Lawrence got like $20 million for this, and I think Pratt got 12 or 15. But
that doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
But yeah, they're both Hollywood A-listers.
Yep.
She's an Academy Award winner.
I think he was still on his way up. But no, I guess
he would have done Guardians
at that point.
And this came after first Jurassic Park, I think, or Jurassic World, whatever. He was Chris Pratt already.
Right,
yeah. He was already Chris Pratt.
Okay.
He was he'd done Lego Movie. This was only out like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Three now.
26, but it was a December release.
Yeah.
So it's just past its 2-year birthday.
2 years. Okay.
So all those things like the first Jurassic World, Guardians of the Galaxy, Lego Movie, all those things, he was full on Chris Pratt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 2014 for Guardians. 2014 for
Jurassic
Lego Movie. 2015 for Jurassic. Yeah. Okay. He would have been. Pretty,
he was fully rolling.
He was pretty up there at that point. So,
yeah.
All right.
I think I covered earlier too. He's like the most handsome everyman ever.
Yeah.
And they do that so like you would never like they spend so much time building up sympathy for him by waking him up first chronologically in the story, or like by showing the film in chronological order. So showing him wake up first, they build up so much sympathy on him because everybody loves Chris Pratt, and I'm sure that's why they hired him. That when you build that much up sympathy on him, you never even when she gets mad, you can see her point, but you're still like, oh, but he was so alone. Where I think if you didn't see that first,
it changes
and lean more into the creepiness, because the idea that he sat there and he was starting to eat his breakfast, like, take off the charm, just take away the movie, and if you just read this as lines and don't think about how a guy sits there watching a girl sleeping for months and then decides to wake her up against her will. Mm-hmm. How creepy is that?
Oh, yeah, no, it's...
And they lean totally away from that. It's like, in its face, like, yeah, she would be creeped out as hell, and you'd be like, yeah, good on you, you'd be creeped out. This dude essentially stalked you as you slept.
Yeah, I really like the idea of him hanging himself and then she gets stuck in that moment of,
mm-hmm. And
that in space, no one can hear you scream moment, right? Like it just,
and it would be, and you could even put some fear in there that she'd be afraid that this guy stalked me and watched me sleep for months, then woke me up, lied to me about it, and basically tailored his personality or altered his personality based on things he knew about me to sort of become someone that would absolutely appeal to me and make me fall in love. And now I'm stuck on the ship with him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, how many locks can I put on my door?
Yeah,
and then show her into that, and that would become a whole other psychological part of it too, of then watching her start to be alone. Now she's not as alone as him because she still has, like I said, that option that at any moment she can say, you know what, she can, if the loneliness becomes too much for her, she can choose to accept he did that and forgive him and say, we'll sit and talk. I'm not in love with you, but at least we can talk, and we're not like, there's another person there to talk to. And then you'd have that moment when she finds him dead, and you could have that guilt over she had put him back in that lonely place because it was totally all her power. And now, as much as he did something to her, does she do something to him then? Like, there's questions you could ask, and I don't know the answers.
Here's a question for you then. Does she find him freshly dead, or does she find him...
I'd say fresh, because
couple of weeks dead.
Maybe not a couple of weeks, but you could put like a couple days or something. You could do a thing like she hasn't seen him in a couple days, and she starts to get lonely. I even like that idea that she hasn't seen him in a couple days. Maybe even she's writing a diary like, I haven't seen him in a week, and this is weird, and I'm starting to I'm starting to almost understand. I'm getting a glimpse of what he felt like, and what he did to me was still wrong, and I don't know, but if I was in his, give her an internal monologue, in his place, would I have done something different, or would I have chosen to wake somebody up and have her go look, kind of like, what, I'm going to talk to him and start to see like, maybe I'm starting to change on this, not be back in love with him, but just whatever, and then find him hanging, and then just watch that moment, and just have that thing of, now you really understand, and just go out on that and just leave a lot of these things unsaid. And then the audience, like you talk with people, you'd go out with friends after this and you'd talk for hours. They'd have to kick you out of the bar or the coffee shop at the end of the night, still debating was when he got that lonely, was it unforgivable what he did, or was it not, or what's she gonna do next?
One of the things that go back to knits, one of the things that I kind of found, it was again Chris Pratt and his charm, and trying to go back to the charm is he really, like, he was alone for a year. The bartender maybe kind of took the edge off, but he wouldn't really know how to actually, like, he's been out of practice socializing for over a year.
He should have been a lot more awkward.
He kind of fell into it just a little too quickly. Yep. And so that kind of bothered me a little bit, but
and that's like, another thing that you could push in this alternate, version that I propose here.
I could definitely see Sam Rockwell playing that.
Exactly, because I love some Sam Rockwell, and he's the kind of guy that could really grip into making him a little socially awkward now, and maybe make those interactions a little bit forced, and you could almost have her like, maybe not really thinking because she's still just newly woken up, but him saying things that he knows she's gonna like, and then maybe he catches himself a couple times that he doesn't want to tip his hand of, oh yeah, I've basically been researching you for 5 months to learn everything that you're gonna like, I found out what kind of wine you liked, and I went and drank it to get a taste for it, and that's what I order when we go to the bar. I order a drink that I know you like or something,
No, that'd be... Yeah.
Show him like tipping his hand, almost he's a little too obvious, and he gets scared, and he has to reel himself back and not be quite so obvious about it. And
that'd be interesting. Do you do like some sort of maybe almost like internal monologue with him too, or?
I think you could do something like that. And the only thing that I want to try to balance it off of when I think about it is that, have you ever watched a movie where there's no talking and no sound for extended periods?
Yes.
And have you ever
Those are the creepiest
Have you ever
movies.
felt how oppressive that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So now imagine when you go into what I would say the flashback of when she knows, and now you skip back, and for 15 or 20 minutes or 25 minutes, you're showing what he went through, and really have some patience with it. Because if the movie was about 2 hours long, if you're going to take off a lot of the end of where I say there's like the sci-fi action rescue where they got to save the ship, if you lop that off, you've got more breathing room in the middle, and you can make the movie, you can just, they could have edited, made it any length they want, however long it felt it needed to be, but you could have had the patience to have 20 minutes in there with no sound, really, just like maybe like background ambient sound of the ship.
Yeah.
And without having the bartender robot character in there, no one for him to talk to. Maybe sometimes he talks to himself, but a lot of it, you could have played 6-7 minutes at a time with no talking because he just stops talking to himself, or maybe it's weird to him. I don't know. Like, I don't know how people in isolation get, like, do you...
What was that movie? There was a movie that came out recently
with no sound?
With no, like, almost no soundtrack.
Are you thinking The Quiet Place?
I haven't watched that one yet. It's on my list, but I haven't watched it yet. No, there was a movie probably within the last 5 years that had, quite often it had no soundtrack at all. It was just quiet and people were doing things, and I can't remember what they what it was or what they were, but I wish I could remember what that was, because hearing a movie without a soundtrack,
it's oppressive.
Like, it's just disturbing because you're so used to that constant flow of some sort of input, and then all of a sudden it's just nothing.
Yeah, even with music, like a track in the background, a score track, and you pull that out sometimes, and it's like,
and that was it. They had no background.
You're so used to it that it just gets you, and
Oh, it was. I know that has been used in a few things where it's just it's incredibly effective because while soundtrack can make or break a movie, no soundtrack is.
It's very stressful.
Yeah.
When done by a good filmmaker. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I could see. Oh man, yeah, I could see that. I could feel that being really good. Like just, and then
super stressful thing too. And I don't know that, like, I'm not saying it for this film or for this proposed, alternate reality version, because I don't know. Oh, maybe as a tension part. But have you ever seen something where they're like they draw all the other sound out and you have nothing, and they just sort of build mainly like on a shepherd note? Do you know what a shepherd note is?
Shepherd note?
Shepherd note?
Nope.
You should look it up later. I'm going to explain it wrong scientifically. So people at home, look it up. It's called, you can find it, like, just Google it or look on Wikipedia. It's called a shepherd note. The guy that either invented it or understood it to start using it, his last name was Shepherd. It's a musical note played, and I'm not a musician. I have zero musical knowledge, so I'm going to use the wrong terminology here. But it's a note played in 3 different octaves, or half an octave off, like 3 different played simultaneously, each a half octave off. And the one that's at the top, as it rises in tone, or say you play it, it's a way of playing it. So the tone and the volume is not actually increasing, but it creates an auditory. Have you got it up there so you can read it properly?
For all of you at home.
Here we go.
A shepherd tone, named after Roger Shepherd, is a sound consisting of a superposition of sine waves separated by octaves. When played with the bass pitch of the tone moving upward or downward, it is referred to as the Shepherd scale.
There you go. And it
creates the auditory illusion of a tone that continually ascends or descends in pitch, yet which ultimately seems to get no higher or lower.
They use Chris Nolan is a big fan of it. Chris Nolan uses it in The Dark Knight, and he uses it again in Dunkirk. And so it creates great tension because when they play it out, draw it out, it feels like it's constantly raising and like your gut starts to feel it, but it's not actually going. It's not actually infinitely raised. Yeah, so it's an awesome thing. Later on, you should play the audio. It wouldn't come through properly on this, or I would say play it, but sample it. But you should absolutely later on listen to it. Yeah. And then when you get it, you'll recognize that you've seen it, heard it in The Dark Knight, and you've probably heard it in Dunkirk as well. Okay. Yeah, and it's awesome for building tension. But anyways, I was back to like having an environment of total silence. The total silence helps reinforce that like isolation.
Yeah. What I would suggest is it opens up with her, opening her eyes and all that. And then, you do a soundtrack throughout that part. Mm-hmm. And then the second she realizes, soundtrack goes away.
Yeah.
Right? And the only time you get soundtrack after that is when she's got her whatever for listening, when she's, whatever, if she's running like Jennifer Lawrence did in the thing, you get that. And then the second he shows up, she pulls the music out and then soundtrack goes away. And it just keeps that tension high. And then right when she comes around the corner and she sees him hung, you shepherd note it then. And then you just,
But just just the loneliness and whatever. And
let's go get $20 million and make this movie.
We only need 5 or 10. I'll bet you Warren Nightingale could direct this. We need some money for production design, so I'm going to say 10. But you could make this movie for 10. And what I think is a much better version of it. My personal taste, because I kind of like things a little bit darker. But and I like it when in my and I'm by no means I forget who I'm paraphrasing here. And this is terrible. I'll look it up for next time. But and I'm sure it's not a totally unique quote, but I think who he was quoting, I've heard Nick Meyer say it, or I read it in a Nicholas Meyer interview, and he might have been quoting somebody else, that truly great art doesn't answer questions, it asks questions. And so I think a thing like this, you could have really interesting conversations with people about, like, if you watched it, would I be interesting to see some people might still feel sympathy for that character being so alone, where other people would be more like, no, wait, he's a creep and he's weird and what's she gonna do at the end? And like, I think that the film that, and I don't think I'm by no means the only person, I don't think that it's uniquely proposed this idea. I did legitimately, I'll swear on a stack of Bibles or comic books or whatever, that coming out of the theater when I initially saw it on Christmas Day on 2016, and I saw it alone, this is what I thought. Like, I'm like, man, they should have done this and this and this. And then months later, I talked with Warren about it, and he said the same thing. And subsequently, I found other places on the internet where other people have had that same idea. So it's by no means, I'm not like the only person in the world that's thought of this. But yeah, I think that's a much more interesting take or form for it. Less Hollywood.
For 100%.
And I can totally understand. They were like, "Hey, we've got this thing. We want to make a whole bunch of money, and here's how we're gonna make this a thing that makes a bunch of money."
Yeah, no, I could see that. Like, you do it like that, it becomes like, Memento. It becomes Blair Witch. It becomes this
a cult thing, a more cult thing that probably doesn't do as much box office, but also gets made for a lot less.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's not going to do more as much at the box office. This with word of mouth, man, that thing could.
It would have, but it's the kind of thing that doesn't get made or doesn't get put out because Hollywood, big studios and distributors don't have confidence and don't understand how to market things like this because they think people don't want to watch them.
They think people are dumb and won't understand.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy because high concept, truer, more like psychological science fiction or movies like this never do good. Have never traditionally rarely ever make big box office and are big. They often. The ones that are popular that we remember, they usually find their audiences later on in the secondary market when people find them as cults. But because of that, studios don't make a lot of them. And when they do, or when one sneaks through that some filmmaker makes it, and they take it to a festival, so some studio snaps it up or distributor snaps it up going, we're going to put this out, but they rarely give it very much promotion. And they go, we don't think, they look at them and they go, traditionally by our model, we think this is only going to make $30 million, so we're not going to go putting a bunch into it to market it.
And by their model,
and therefore it doesn't. It's like, so it's like chicken and the egg. Do they not succeed because they're not promoted, or do they not, do they save money on promotion because it's not going to succeed anyways? And there's no way to ever prove it without one succeeding or multiple ones succeeding, and because even when one does, they call it an aberration, and it's usually because they've to make it succeed, they've thrown a big star into it or something, and then after, even when it succeeds, they're still afraid to make another one. They go, well, it just succeeded because so and so was in it. So this was going to be and this was made way more high concept. Even if you spent money or got like Jennifer Lawrence to still be the female lead and get her to take a smaller pay to make the movie and just say, well, we'll give you a bigger chunk of the back end. Even if it wildly succeeded, you wouldn't have seen a rush of these because they would have gone, well, people just went to see Jennifer Lawrence and they really didn't actually like the movie.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think
that's a whole other discussion, and we have to get Warren Nightingale in on an episode for that. That you and Warren can finally do an episode together because we often talk about the problems with marketing in Hollywood and like the preconceptions that they have internally.
Well, and I think hopefully, Deadpool hopefully has shaken that tree a little bit where,
it didn't.
The lower concept,
Same thing with John Wick. Like John Wick was a lower concept film that I think made decent, or that was back to the more R-rated. It did not make Deadpool money, but I was sort of drifting there off of your point to R. For a long time we didn't get R-rated action films. For 20 years because since the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s they went away because they didn't think they were marketable. Mm-hmm. And now with John Wick and the Deadpool and that, we do see them. But I think, and then Logan. Yeah. But I think even at that, they look at things like that as an aberration, and they're still not going to make a ton of them. Now, not that everything should be an R-rated. Not every comic movie should be R-rated. No. I almost wish that and DC sees Batman too much as the golden boy that they want to make $1 billion franchise. It's too bad because I'd love to see a lower budget with a lesser known actor, a lower budget R-rated Batman film.
Yeah, that would be nice. They could. There's a lot of content that they could do where,
some things would be cool that way, but I think really unfortunately Batman's too big of a property that the people that would do that will never be. Although oddly enough, I would almost say Logan, a Wolverine is almost equal. Maybe not.
I really liked the Logan movie, so
I liked 2/3 of it. I hated the third act.
Yeah,
that's a whole other conversation.
I see what you're saying.
We could go off on a whole other podcast about that one, because I deeply love the first two acts, the first 2/3 of Logan. I think it's really awesome. It's a contemporary Western, and it subverts a lot of the superhero tropes. Mm-hmm. And then I just felt that in the third act, it turned on itself and completely reversed itself. And then just it was all superhero trope for the third act to me.
Sure.
And it could have finished. That's a whole other. Yeah. You know, this is going to be an ongoing series. We're going to do periodically. We're going to do these. Neil proposes a remake of a movie we've already seen, and we'll see if Ben likes it or not.
I'm down. I like. I will say that remake is, wow. Yeah, because we did this once before with something else where we talked about something and you were like, "This is the way they should have done it," and I'm pretty sure.
And I get arrogant, like they should have done it like this, and that's right. Yeah, guys, sitting here in my like IKEA chair in my apartment on Portage Avenue in Winnipeg, I have it all figured out, and that's why Hollywood will be knocking on my door.
I'm really surprised that you don't have like a director's chair
with the $10 million. The $10 million. Oh well, I want to get at I've seen they have those. I don't the proper name for it, a light that looks like a stage light.
Oh yeah,
I want
yeah.
They have everywhere, but I'm going to get one of those one of these days, but to really set off the really full, to make sure that anybody walking into my apartment here realizes, oh, he likes film, because all the movie posters plastered all over the wall in here. Again, we're getting into the visual content of a podcast here for everybody listening, but yeah.
It's breaking it down with the visuals. That's for sure.
Anyways, this was a lot of fun, Ben. Thanks for doing this, and we're going to have to find more movies like this where we can kind of take sides on them and kind of and debate them out like this.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's no shortage. I do seem to like a lot of movies that a lot of people would call terrible, but I like a lot of just throwing it out there. Chronicles of Riddick. One of my favorites. Is that the
second one?
Second one.
The second one? Oh, okay. We might have found our thing.
One of my favorites.
Because I love what's
Pitch
the first
Black?
one? I love Pitch Black. My ex-wife introduced me to Pitch Black, and I loved it. It's one of the greatest things she ever did for me. But man, what comes later really?
I was okay with Pitch Black. I loved Chronicles of Riddick, and I really didn't care for the third.
Oh man, okay, awesome. We're gonna have to. This is a whole other episode. I think we just found a future episode here.
Beautiful.
All right, and once again, I have waited till the end of an episode to try to remember how I'm going to throw it out, and I don't have one this time. So thanks again for being here, Ben, and until next time, don't choke on your popcorn.